Greetings, friends. You're on the Ruslan Belov channel, and today we'll take a detailed look at the situation on the Ukrainian front as of the 15th of October, 2025. Over the past 24 hours, a great many key events have unfolded, each deserving separate attention. Let's begin. First, there are reports today of significant advances by Russian units in the area of Vovchansk. According to the latest information, the Russian army already controls about 70% of the city, while Ukrainian forces hold no more than 30, and possibly less. Russian elements have closed in on Vovchansk's southern citadel, which is under constant strikes. Artillery, rockets, and air power are all being employed. The situation there is becoming critical for the Ukrainian side, and if this line is lost, the battle for the city can be considered effectively over. Reaching the Rubezhanskoye highway would, in practice, open a path toward Kharkiv and give Russian forces access to a wide operational expanse. From this axis, further pushes toward Bely Kolodez and Veliki Burluk become possible. It is no coincidence that Ukrainian authorities have already announced evacuations in the Velikoburluk community. The civilian population is being hastily moved out. However, it is important to understand that such evacuations are often carried out not primarily for civilian safety, but to free up houses, basements, and administrative buildings for military needs. By all indications, these premises are already being actively used by Ukrainian units. It is worth noting that this time Kiev is trying to avoid the mistakes made earlier in the Zaporizhzhia region, where evacuation began too late, when Russian forces had already approached Guliai-Pol, Uspenovka, Poltavka, and Pokrovskoye. Reserves were rushed in only then, but the moment had passed, leading to severe consequences. Now the Ukrainian side is attempting to act preemptively. Nevertheless, it is possible that today's evacuation statements are more demonstrative in nature, a media move to create the appearance of preparation and to slow the pace of the Russian advance. In practice, incoming reserves have not yet been observed. Meanwhile, Russian forces are building on their gains south of the settlement of Otradnoy. Today it became known that another small woodland area has come under their control. As a result, a threat is emerging to encircle the Ukrainian contingent located between Otradnoy and Krasnoy Pervoy. This concerns the northeast of the Kharkiv region, between the settlements of Dvorechnaya and Bologovka. Only about 8 kilometers remain between the Russian positions here, and if the two groupings close the ring, this section of the front will be completely cut off. In that case, Russian troops would be able to link their bridgeheads along the border and the Oskol River line, and then expand their offensive toward Veliki Burluk on a broader front. Fighting continues on the Kupiansk axis. The Russian army is conducting clearing operations in the city, though incoming reports are contradictory. Ukrainian sources claim that special operations forces have been deployed into Kupiansk and are allegedly fighting in the western and northwestern parts of the city. Neutral analysts, however, indicate that Russian units continue to move forward, house by house, gradually pushing out Ukrainian formations. Now to the Lyman sector. The main confrontation here is concentrated between the settlements of Novosyolovka, Drobyshevo, and Yarovaya. Today, a number of pro-Russian sources reported that Russian troops managed to break through Ukrainian defenses north of Drobyshevo and establish themselves on the outskirts. Although confirmations remain limited, as recently as yesterday there were reports of Russian advances east of Drobyshevo and attempts to envelop the settlement from the flanks in order to reach the northern outskirts of Lyman. Apparently, Drobyshevo is gradually being caught in tactical pincers, and street fighting may begin there in the coming days. In addition, Russian units are expanding their zone of control on the Ukrainian side of the Nitrius River, advancing toward the Svyatogorsk forest. At the same time, footage is being published of destruction along the road from Lyman to Slavyansk. Back in 2022, the bridge on this stretch was destroyed, and later the Ukrainians established several pontoon crossings. Today those have also come under strikes. Overall, there is a systematic Russian effort to dismantle Ukrainian logistics, bridges, crossings, depots, and supply routes. Strikes are especially active against crossings in the Svyatogorsk area, where there are 3 or 4 of them. As a result, Ukrainian logistics are gradually collapsing into chaos. On the Seversk direction, there are no major changes. Russian units maintain control of the airspace and continue to strike Ukrainian positions around the city with drones. However, the battles for Zvanovka are becoming increasingly intense. This settlement is of key importance. If it falls, and the fact is officially confirmed, one will be able to speak of an operational encirclement of Seversk. Then the final stage of the battle for this area will begin. Now let us shift to the Constantinovka axis. For several days, no fresh data have been coming from here. It is noteworthy that in August and September, this sector was considered one of the hottest across the entire Donbass front. But with the onset of October, the intensity of fighting has sharply decreased. It is possible that operations currently being conducted by the Russian army are being kept under wraps. The last known reports mentioned advances along the N32 and N20 highways toward Berestov in order to reach the northern shore of the Klebanbik reservoir. There were also reports of actions along the Nelipovka-Kleshcheyevka-Ivanopoliye line. However, over the past 2 weeks, no confirmations of these operations have appeared. And finally, the Pokrovsk sector, the main epicenter of recent days. It is from here that most reports of major changes are coming. The Russian offensive in this area began around the 8th-9th of October and is unfolding toward Mirnograd. Already on the 12th-13th of October, information appeared that the Russian army had cleared the settlement of Kazatskoye and also established itself in the area of Balagan. The Ministry of Defense officially confirmed that Kazatskoye had come under Russian control. Shortly thereafter, reports surfaced of Russian units advancing to the eastern outskirts of Mirnograd and of the clearing of Balagan. Some sources claim that the strike from this side is aimed at the so-called Mirnograd citadel, the high-rise section of the city where the main defense is concentrated. Thus, between the 8th and 14th of October, the Russian army consistently operated along the eastern and southeastern flanks of the Pokrovsk agglomeration. It had been expected that the next target would be the village of Promin, located further to the south, but today new information has emerged, this time from the western side. The Russian Ministry of Defense officially announced that the center grouping had completely cleared the settlement of Novopavlovka. Later, footage of objective control was published, showing Russian soldiers raising the flag in the central part of the village. Based on these confirmations, it can be concluded that the southern flank of Mirnograd is gradually being enveloped from 2 directions, from the east and the southwest. The goal of this operation is clear: to cut off the southern part of the city, clear the area, and establish firm control over the captured positions. From these heights and buildings, the Russian army will be able to bring under fire control all the roads leading from Mirnograd to the west. The distance between the forward Russian positions and these key routes is now just a few kilometers. Combined with the pressure coming from Rodenskoye and Krasny Lyman, Mirnograd faces a high risk of falling into operational encirclement. It is highly likely that the Ukrainian army will not be able to hold the southern districts of the city for long. In the coming days, we will probably witness decisive developments. Either Ukrainian forces will manage to stabilize their defensive line, or the southern part of Mirnograd will finally come under full Russian control. If that happens, the entire Mirnograd-Pokrovsk area may collapse like a house of cards. Now we move to the Zaporizhzhia direction. As expected, numerous important reports are arriving from there. Russian units continue their active assault operations in the areas of the Uspanovka and Poltavka fortified zones. The situation remains extremely tense, and updates on the maps have practically stopped. The lack of frontline changes usually indicates close-quarters fighting, and that is exactly what is now happening in these settlements. Ukrainian forces are sending reinforcements in an effort to hold their defenses and stabilize the line. That is why, for now, the cartographic services show little change. However, it's important to understand that the absence of visible updates does not mean the front is static. On the contrary, indirect signs show that the fighting there is fierce and continuous. There is every reason to believe that large portions of the Poltavka and Uspanovka defense lines are already under Russian control, though neither side is rushing to make official statements. Most likely, within the next few days, or a week at most, the situation will become clearer. And judging by current dynamics, the developments will favor the Russian side. Meanwhile, Russian troops have completed a prolonged operation to clear the settlement of Alexeyevka. The battle for this village lasted about a week and was marked by intense clashes. Today, official footage from the Vostok grouping was released via its affiliated Telegram channels, clearly showing how the battle unfolded and how it ended. In the final moments of the videos, one can see Russian soldiers raising flags in several locations, at least 3 points in total. This serves as confirmation of complete control over Alexeyevka. The Russian Ministry of Defense has officially confirmed the liberation of the settlement. In addition, the Russian army maintains control over the Volchya River. The northern stretch of the river, located above Alexeyevka, has long been under the surveillance and fire of FPV drones, a fact we've mentioned repeatedly in previous reports. Now, new information indicates heavy strikes in the area of Pokrovsk. As a result of aerial bombings and missile attacks, a bridge connecting the northern and southern parts of the settlement was destroyed. The published footage shows a series of precise strikes hitting the bridge, leaving the structure critically damaged. In theory, the crossing may still be passable for infantry, but vehicle movement is already impossible. It's only a matter of time before new strikes come and the bridge collapses completely. This event is of great significance, since this bridge was one of the main arteries of Ukrainian logistics. Its loss greatly complicates supply efforts for the Ukrainian grouping operating in this sector. The distance to the nearest available routes has now sharply increased, and the transport chain for ammunition and fuel has become much longer. The road connecting Pokrovsk and Vasilyevka, which runs along the railway line, previously ensured steady communication. Now that route has been effectively cut off. Step by step, the Russian army is dismantling the entire Ukrainian logistical system across the eastern Zaporizhzhia sector. All these developments indicate that the Russian forces have no intention of stopping. Once operations in the Uspianovka and Poltavka areas are completed, the next stage will begin: the decisive battle of the eastern Zaporizhzhia offensive, the battle for Guliai-Pol. Now we turn to the Kherson direction. From early this morning, a stream of reports has been coming in from experts and independent cartographers alike. They all describe new combat episodes in the island zone of the region. Mentions are appearing of new geographic features, small river islands within the Dnipro Channel, where, according to the latest data, Russian units have conducted landings. The main focus right now is the Kherson district, known as Ostrov, located in the southern part of the city and separated from the main territory by the Dnipro and Koshevaya rivers. According to reports, Russian airborne detachments have begun fighting there. Some sources were quick to color the entire district as being under Russian control, but that does not correspond to reality. The battles continue and the situation remains fluid. The Russian side appears to be bringing in additional forces and resources, attempting to secure a foothold on the island. Should they succeed, the situation for Ukrainian units will become extremely difficult. The river complicates supply lines for both sides, but Russia's advantage in technical and logistical capabilities gives it the upper hand. If consolidation on the island succeeds, the next logical step would be a push northward with the goal of clearing all of Kherson. This would force the Ukrainian command to transfer reserves from other directions, stretching its already limited manpower. Such a shift could increase pressure across the entire front line, and this may well become the decisive factor in the coming weeks. That's all for now, dear friends. Thank you for watching, for supporting the channel, and for staying with us. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and see you in the next report. Take care.